Hey guys, welcome back to another video here in the Smart EV channel. This could be an interesting one because I'm gonna show you how you can study recreational players in your pool using the Smart Research pop-up package in Hand2Note. It is well known that the majority of our win rate as poker players come from recreational players, so it's very important to recognize and address how they are actually playing and adjust our strategy against them in order to get the maximum EV. So that being said, let's take a look to this report I've created in range research. As you can see, I name it as a fish standard because I want to filter out recreational players in this report. In base stats, I set some parameters here in PPIP. I set 25 to 100, PFR from 0 to 100 because the PFR stat in recreational players is kind of volatile because a fish can have 2 or 3% of PFR or 40, so it's kind of difficult to estimate what is the average PFR for recreational players, so I said all. BPIP PFR gap, I said 13 to 100, limp from 2 to 100, and hands 500 from 500, sorry. So when I run this report, Hand2Note will filter all players that match with these parameters I set. So basically Hand2Note will filter all recreational players in this report, and when it finishes, we can see the report and we are now in the general stats. Now we are in the general pop-up. Here we have the most relevant pre-flop and showdown stats, an overall stat for all streets. And from here, we can start addressing some interesting stat values. We can see that the average fish has a PPP of 42, PFR of 15, a 3-bet of 6, 4-bet of 8.7, this is quite low, and 4 versus 3-bet of 28. We have the reference here for the pre-flop stats. Stats that are colored in blue are passive values, and stats colored in red are loose values. Another interesting stat is that the fish are overfolding quite a lot on the river. Overall, the fish is folding 58%, no matter the flop, the turn, or the pre-flop. And this behavior is kind of similar in single raised pot. They are folding 55%. In a 3-bet pot, they are folding 52, and in a 4-bet pot, they are folding 50. So from a general perspective and at the first glance, the fish is overfolding a lot on the river. But of course, we can dig a little bit more and take a deeper look in some specific lines. Let's move to the open raise section and explore the fold versus 3-bet stat. We have the total here. If we hover over the stat, we can visualize more detailed information such as the pre-flop matrix and fold against different 3-bet sizings. As you can see, it's interesting that the average fish is folding almost the same values against 10 big blinds, 3-bet, and 14. So here we have the first exploit. We can start to sizing up our 3-bet against recreationals because they are calling the same percentage. But if we are playing against a fish that has only 30 big blinds, that doesn't make much sense. But against someone that has more than 60 big blinds, I think it's okay. So we can start to size up our 3-bet sizing against recreational players because the data shows that they are calling the same percentage. Especially in environments that are anonymous tables, like ignition or bulldog. But yeah, I think it's okay to size up our 3-bet sizing. And we can do the same for every single stat value. For example, the 4-bet not all in is only 5%. And we can see the hands here. And in this block, we can study every single position, EP, MP, cutoff button, and small blind, and see how they play against different position, call versus 3-bet, fold versus 3-bet, 4-bet, 4-bet range, etc., etc. Another thing is that you can use the Smart Research package by for MDA purposes, create different reports for different profiles and study population tendencies, but also you can load and import your database. Let's say you have 100k or 200k hands played by you, and you can study your game with this set of pop-ups. You can explore every single situation, see how you're playing. Let's say, for example, you're struggling in 4-bet pots. You're not sure how you're playing your premium hands or your mid hands, and for example, in early positions, you want to see when you open raise and see a 3-bet, you 4-bet, you simply go here to the 4-bet stat, and you can access to the matrix and see the hands. You can even replay the hands and analyze your hands. This is quite useful. Or if you are a coach, you can import databases from your students and analyze their game and find their leaks. You can use the action profit details and see on which hands you are losing more. For example, let's say you're for betting strong suited connectors and have a negative EV, you can replay these hands. This is very, very useful. And here you can reproduce your hands and see what's going on. Let's move now to the limp section and explore different lines. In this section, we have some pre-flop stats as limper, the total, limp fold, limp call, and limp raise, and the same for all positions. Again, we can hover, for example, over the limp fold stat and see how recreationals react against different isolation sizings. We can see as we increase the isolation sizing, the fish start to fold more. We can do the same for the limp call and see the hands. If we hover over different call sizing, Hand2Note will display a separate preflop matrix. And we can even reproduce the hands when we hover over a certain hand. This is quite useful. But let's take a look now for the post flop. We have EP button in position, EP to cut off out of position, and small blind versus big blind, and the most frequent situations. Let's take a look to some stats that are common when we isolate a fish, and the fish donk bets and bets the turn and bets the river. We have to go to the donk bets section and see the triple donk bet that this is this stat. Donk bet, 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 71. And when we hover, we can see this post-flop diagram with a ton of useful information that we can explore. As we can see, the stat value is 71 and the fish is the range composition on the river has 39 of weak hands. This is quite a lot. let's take here, let's pin up this here, and let's take a look to another common situation that is when the fish check calls the flop, check calls the turn, and dongbets the river. Here in the dongbets, check call, dongbet. This is 20 stat, and we can see a pretty big difference. Check call, dongbet contains only 27% of weak hands, and the triple dongbets of 39. We can see that there is a pattern that when the fish overbets or increases sizing, especially in overbets, the percentage of weak hands decreases a lot. And this is a common pattern when the fish bets the river. Let's take a look now to when the fish calls. We have to go to versus open raise section and select call auto position. Here we have the total and against different sizings. But let's take a look to a very common stat that is prop turn plus bet the river. This is when we check back the flop, we are in position, we check back the flop, the fish bets the turn, we call and bet the river again. This is way more over bluff spot. Fish here in this line have a 42 of weak hands. And the pattern here is more clear. The red hands are overpairs and two pair plus. And here the pattern is quite clear. As the fish increase the sizing in the river, on the river, the percentage of weak hands also decreases. So here's the thing. We know that the fish massively overbluff the river, and calling or bluff catching against them a lot is a very good strategy, but only when the fish bets the pot or less. And of course, overfold against overbets. But because the data shows that they are under bluffing when they overbet. We can even filter this stat, but from position and textures. Let's say we can see how the fish plays in the big blinds against button. We can go to the positional tab and select big blind, and we can sub-filter big blind against early positions, against cutoff, and against button. And we have the same stat, prop turn plus bet river, 57. Same overbet pattern, 42% of weak hands, and the same sizing pattern. We can also do the same but for the textures. If we see, for example, ace ABX means ace Broadway, ace Broadway X for flop textures, we have the same stat, prop turn plus bet the river, 57%, same pattern. And we can even compare this texture with a different one, for example, A to too high, there's a big difference between these two flop textures. Here we have ace Broadway X texture, flop textures, and here in the left we have the low boards. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna open again. All right. And here in the left we have 8 high boards, or 7 high or 6 high, basically the low boards disconnected. And this is way more over bluff because fish here we have a lot of Broadway hands, overcards, missed overcards, ace high, etc. And this texture in particular is way more over bluff than ace Broadway X. And this is how you can use this very powerful tool to filter statistics, situations, and study general tendencies. You can do the same for regulars. For example, I have here a filter of all regulars. I set these parameters, BPP from 15 to 30, PFR from 15 to 26, BPP PFR gap from 0 to 9, and limp from 0 to 2. And only players with 1,500 hands or more. And you can do the same for the regs, okay? You can study general stats, flop, turn, and river general overall stats. And study, for example, the pre-flop, how they play in single raised pot as a raiser in position. You can study for sizing distribution, pivots for less than 40% of the pot, pivots half a pot of from 60 to 80, from positions, from textures. You can filter and sub-filter basically every single spot. So in this way you can set up your own MDA lab and start studying how your opponents are actually playing in your pool. Alright, hope this guy helps you to understand how to work with this package in Hand2Note. If you want to acquire this tool, I will leave all the links in the video descriptions. And if you have any questions, you can contact me anytime, guys. That's all. Thanks for watching and good luck at the tables.